Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back. I am Kris. This is part 2 by The Tragedy of Hope. Oh, my microphone cut out. Oh, I nailed it. I said it perfectly. So we're gonna get into part 2. He just ran into Caesar. I almost said Justine. No, that's not right either. Oh my goodness, did I already forget the name? Is that one guy? You know, that one dude. Anyways, he made the loving motions with his daughter or his sister, if you know what I mean. The stork's going to be bringing a baby soon, if you understand what I'm saying. I don't. I don't know any other metaphors about it. He was playing naughty games. I don't have any others. There, nothing that's clean. Yep. So, thumbs up, subscribe, helps me out. Thanks button, donate, request, you sponsor video.
I think it may be. I recall it to be his daughter, so it may be his sister. So he has this. Now, afterwards, people, Caesar kind of has a little inkling that is something going on, but he doesn't catch on. And then Imruʼ Qais kind of bids them farewell. Bye bye, tata, ciao, and he's off on his way. And Justinian tells him, "Don't worry, I'm going to send the cavalry. I'm going to send the Roman." Putar, Rome is going to make its way. So, anyway, whilst Imruʼ Qais is on his way, and remember, he's this epic poet. Somebody from Banu Asad, the tribe that he had avenged his father's death from and destroyed that tribe, one of them ends up, for some reason, he's in Caesar's royal court. And he realizes, he comes to learn that Imruʼ Qais has just been, and Caesar seems to be fond of him. So he does a bit of the stirring. He says to Caesar that, "Oh, Caesar, that, that typical huzur, chota muh badi baat." That saying that it's a small mouth, but he says it's a big ask, if I may, please. So Caesar says, "Yes, speak as you freely." He says, "Look, Caesar, your highness," he says, "the word is that he's had a little fling with your women folk, and what you don't know about him is all his poetry is full of womanizing." So, for example, in the famous Mu'allaqa of Imruʼ Qais, he says, this is in his Mu'allaqa. By the way, this is taught in all the madrasas as well and everything, where he says, وَمِثْلُكِ حُبْلَى قَدْ تَرَقْتُ وَمُرْضِعٍ فَأَلْهَيْتُهَا عَنْ ذِي تَمَائِمَ مُحْوِلِ. He says, and how many pregnant women or nursing women that are nursing their child have I had sex with? This is in his Mu'allaqa, he says this. And I distracted her from her child. He says, فَمَنْ صَرَفَتْ لَهُ says, فَمَنْ صَرَفَتْ but I've forgotten the next line. But he says, but he mentions that she tries to she gets distracted halfway because the child is crying. بِشِقٍ وَشِقُّهَا تَحْتِي لَمْ يُحَوَّلِ. And he says, and yet half of her is still underneath me. And these are the kind of poems that he had, by the way. He was, this is the greatest Arab poet of Jahiliyyah times. So this person tells Caesar, you don't know who this guy is. I mean, this guy, he's going to make a poem about your daughter, and all of the Arabs are going to be singing it. So Caesar says, Acha, Hamari cat, humper attack. So he says, you know what? We'll have to fix him. So he says, okay, we'll fix this. So what he does is he sends, in that day and age, they used to have something known as al-hullat al-masmuma. So they would have a suit, which would be a bit like a kind of qamis kind of thing, a bit like a kind of qamis, but underneath you'd have like a sarong, an izar, like a dhoti. But they would have the inside of it poisoned. That when you wore it, especially in the heat, it would kind of penetrate into the pores, and it would poison you. So it was known as, in classical times, it was known as al-hullat al-masmuma. It was often a trick that was used by people to poison someone, send them a new suit. So Justinian...
I would hope so. I would hope it's just a trick. I hope they don't make those and no, we're just putting them on the shelf over here. Just, don't touch them. And then they give them out as Christmas gifts. Whoops. Whoops-a-daisy. What a goof. I mean, you make one, you know what you're making it for.
Sends Imruʼ Qais a suit, and he says, and sends a message that this is my suit. And it is made from this cloth, and it is identified as that from Caesar himself. I want you to wear this on every place you go in front of people, so they know that Caesar is with you. So Imruʼ al-Qais says, of course, labbaik wa sa'daik. So he wears this kind of hullat al-masmuma, and obviously you can imagine the Arabian heat, the desert, and he's wearing it in all these places, and the poison, it penetrates his pores, and he starts to get poisoned, and he starts to get these things where parts of your skin start to kind of almost, they turn into these kind of boils and drop off or something. This is why Imruʼ al-Qais is also called the Quruh. They call him the one of wounds, the one of many wounds, because his body developed all these wounds as he was kind of traveling from town to town. And it's amazing because he eventually he starts to break down with all this kind of this poison in his body. And he says one of his famous poems known as the Senior.
Did he realize what was happening, or did he just, had he never worn one before, and so maybe he just thought it was like an irritation or a rash, or did he know he was poisoned? Because as soon as it started to get uncomfortable, I would not be wearing it anymore. I don't care who gave it to me. So I don't know why you didn't take it off.
It is quite, honestly, it's quite a tragedy in its way, because he begins it by saying, "Alimma ala al-rab'i al-qadim bi'as'asa, wa hal unadi aw ukallimu akhrasa." And he says, the usual style that, hey, come, my two companions settle in this place, as'as, and what's wrong? Why are people not listening to me? And in it, he brings up his kind of, because he becomes so weak. And he kind of recants his days of glory. And he says, وَيَا رُبَّ مَكْرُومٍ كَرَرْتُ وَرَاءَهُ وَطَاعَنْتُ عَنْهُ الْخَيْلَ فَتَنَفَّسَ. Because he was a warrior in his day. And he says that, there were so many people who were in distress in the desert that I found them. And I chased the bandits away from them and allowed this person to breathe. And then he kind of recounts his events with women, how women would all fight over him. And he says, فَإِنِّي رَأَيْتُ he says, إِنِّي رَأَيْتُهُنَّ لَا يُحْبِبْنَ مَنْ قَلَّ مَالُهُ. He says, I see that women don't like a person who starts to lack in wealth. وَلَا مَنْ رَأَيْنَ الشَّيْبَ فِيهِ وَقَوَّسَ. He says, neither a person who once they start seeing white hair in him or who becomes arched forward because he's of old age. And he's trying to say that, there was a time where I had all of this, and where are these people today? And, because he's struggling. And he says something, it's really, he says, فما خلت تبريح الأيام كما أرى يضيق ذراعي أن أقوم فألبس. He says that I never thought that the days would end up with such tribulation that I can't even stand up to wear my own shirt. Because this is how weak he's become. And he says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ النَّفْسَ تَمُوتُ جَمِيعَةً. And you can see جَمِيعَةً is used as in the feminine here. وَلَوْ أَنَّ النَّفْسَ تَمُوتُ جَمِيعَةً وَلَكِنَّهَا نَفْسٌ تَسَاقَطُ أَنفُسًا. Allah. He says, if only my soul would just go in one go, but it seems to be dying a breath at a time. And then he says, Allah, he says that ألا إن للمرء بعد العدم قنوة وبعد المشيب طول عمر وملبسا. This line of his, it's one that's full of hope. Like he says, ألا إن للمرء بعد العدم قنوة. He says, indeed, a person after having lost everything, still there is a chance to regain everything. وَبَعْدَ الْمَشِيبِ, and even after turning white in the hair, طُولَ عُمْرٍ, a long life is yet to come, وَمَلْبَسًا, and many garments to wear. This line of his is so full of hope. But unfortunately, his life was coming to an end. Unbeknownst to him. And he kind of stumbles, and then he eventually reaches this place known as, and he's only got 1-2 companions with him, and he reaches this place called Asib. And there's nothing in it. And he finds this, what looks like a grave. And it's almost like poetic irony. And he asks this old lady going by that, what is this? And she says it's the grave of a Roman girl that's buried far away. She was from Rome, and she's buried here. And here he says his poem, the famous, that's become proverbial, where he says, Ajaratana inna gharibani ha huna. That he addresses her, he says, he begins it by Ajaratana inna al-khutuba tanubu. That he says, my neighbor. He's calling her his neighbor. And he says that, see, calamities come. And he says, wa inni muqimun ma aqama asibu. And I am kind of taking up settlement in this place called Asib. Ajaratana inna gharibani ha huna. That both of us are strangers here. And he says, the famous wa kullu gharibin lil gharibi nasibu. Allah says, and every stranger to another stranger is a relative. Allah. فَإِن تَصِلِي مَا بَيْنَنَا فَتِلْكَ قَرَابَةٌ وَإِن تَصْرِمِينَا فَالْغَرِيبُ غَرِيبٌ. Says, if you do reach out to me with some kind of kinship, then that's awesome. And if not, then a stranger is always a stranger. But and in this place he dies, Imruʼ Qais. And it's this kind of story of this legend of a person who goes through this eventful life of adventures and these kind of wars and women and alcohol and triumphs and being in the circles of the elite, to in the court of Caesar, to eventually find himself in this deserted valley. And as Allah says, وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. See, not a soul knows where its death has been written. And there's so many lessons.
He died from the poisoning, correct? And it just really wreaked havoc on him. That's my guess. How old was he? Watch him answer the question in about 4 seconds.
To take from this story. And Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an, when he spoke of the great poets of Jahiliyyah, he said, Sabiquhum Imruʼ al-Qais. He said the one who kind of beat them all was Imruʼ al-Qais. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I'd share that with you. But this line of his was so profound because of the hope it kind of imbibed. Although you know he's not going to make it. He says, Ala inna lil mar'i ba'da al-udmi qinwatan wa ba'da al-mashibi tula umrin wa malbasa. That a man, even after having lost it all, can still regain it all. Allahu Akbar.
It's not bad. I would rather see a video that doesn't just kind of I guess kind of see him a little bit more. I don't mind this. It was a little harder to understand at times because I hate to break this down, but I can speak every language in the world, but I don't speak Arabic. So I know. So, but it was, I liked it. I just, I don't know much about poetry or poets or any of that stuff. So I feel like I didn't quite understand how important he was. But anyways, I'm going to end it here. How old was he when he died? And he was around before and then kind of into Islam. Did he say that in the beginning? I don't know. I don't remember. I'm all kinds of confused right now. It's been a busy day. All right, well, I'm going to end it here. Hope you enjoyed. I did. Until next time, have a good day, have a good night.